No more eviction? Did the coronavirus stimulus just put a ban on all eviction? Let's go and dive right in. Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Sam Kwok here, one of the Kwok brothers, and in this video, we're going to go and continue to unpack and break down what's inside the CARES Act and how it relates to us real estate investors and landlords. Now, before we dive in, be sure to go and subscribe to this channel if you guys want more updates about the CARES Act and growing and scaling your rental portfolio. Another thing I want to add is that I am not an attorney, I am not an accountant, nor am I a financial advisor, so any information that I share with you guys today are simply my interpretation of the CARES Act. So the two main things I want to talk about today is the Foreclosure Moratorium and consumer right to request forbearance, and also the ban on all eviction and if it ever applies to you and how it works. So let's go and dive into the first thing first, which is the Foreclosure Moratorium and consumer right to request forbearance. Now, I'm looking at section 4022. If you bought a rental property or investment property or pretty much any property using a federally backed mortgage program, this includes FHA, VA, Veterans Affairs loan, agricultural loans, or loans backed by Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac, this applies to you. So you can essentially request a forbearance of up to 180 days for single family up to 4 units of property. Now, there's a separate subsection for multifamily of 5 units or more. So what is this forbearance thing? Well, a forbearance is essentially a break that's given to you, and you essentially don't have to make any monthly payment as long as you're within the forbearance period. So like I said, you can request up to 180 days of forbearance, which means that inside that 180-day period, you're not obligated to make any single payment, and also the bank that's issuing the mortgage may not charge any fees or penalties while you're inside the forbearance period. Additionally, this section also puts a stop on foreclosure processes for 60 days beginning on March 18, 2020. That means if you don't end up making your payment on a federally backed mortgage program, the issuing bank cannot start a foreclosure process inside the 60 days beginning March 18, 2020. Okay, so let's move on to the multifamily side of things. This is 5 rental units or more. So if you bought an apartment building using any of the federally backed mortgage program, this section applies to you. Now, when it comes to the forbearance period, unlike the section before, which gives you 180 days, by default, they'll give you 30 days for the forbearance and request an extension of 2 additional 30-day period if you request for that. Now, there's a catch when it comes to getting the forbearance on multifamily properties. If you go and request for a forbearance on your multifamily property, you may not evict or initiate the eviction of a tenant from a dwelling unit located in or on the applicable property solely for non-payment of rent or other fees or charges, or charge any late fees, penalties, or other charges to the tenant described in paragraph 1, which is, the tenant that didn't pay rent. Additionally, you may not even issue a pay or quit notice to the tenant if they don't pay the rent. So if you choose to get the forbearance, you may not evict, initiate eviction, or even serve a pay or quit notice to your tenants while you're under the forbearance period. Okay, so let's move on to the second point of this video, which has to do with the ban on eviction part. Under section 4024, temporary moratorium on eviction filings, you may not evict or initiate the eviction process for 120 days from the date that this CARES Act has been enforceable. Again, this has to do with properties that have financing backed by the federal government. So if you bought a property using financing backed by the federal government, you may not start or initiate any eviction processes for 120 days beginning March 27th. Another thing to add is that you may not even issue a notice to pay or vacate under paragraph 1. So if your tenants don't pay rent, you may not even post a notice or even serve a pay or vacate notice. This is absolutely crazy if you have a property that's being financed using any of those programs that I described above. So I don't know what you guys think about this. Leave your comments down below. Is this crazy? Is this overreaction? Is this fair? Go and leave that comment down below. And honestly, this is why I love owner financing, because if you have any property that you purchased using owner financing, you wouldn't be subject to these types of crazy rules. So what is owner financing? Well, an owner financing is an arrangement between you, the buyer, and a seller of a property in which you make monthly payments to the seller in exchange for the ownership right of the property. So the seller essentially acts as a bank, accepts monthly payments just like a bank, but you get to have the ownership right of the property, rent it out, or fix and flip it, whatever you guys want to do to make money. So I love owner financing because it keeps me protected from rules like these. So what I'll do is I'll leave a video about owner financing down below if you guys want to learn more about it. So just to recap, this essentially only applies to properties that you bought using financing backed by the federal government. You can request for forbearance up to 180 days for single family, up to 4 units. If you have a 5+ or more multifamily, you can request a forbearance up to 30 days by default, and 2 more 30 days if you request it. And also, we got the ban on evictions if you have any property financed backed by the federal government up to 120 days. This is really, really crazy. So if you guys learned something new today, go and subscribe and like this video and leave your comment down below. This is a crazy rule and provision, which I understand it's to protect the tenants as well as the general public. But I'm sure as landlords, you guys have lots of concerns about this because you're unable to evict or collect rent as far as what's going on. So go and leave it down below. Again, I'll be providing more updates about the CARES Act in this YouTube channel. And if you want to learn more about growing your rental portfolio or buying more rental properties, we're making a ton of more videos about that. So definitely subscribe to our channel. All right, so see you guys in the next video.